Hi guys, welcome to this video. This is the third in the series of 4 videos I'm doing about the Aerosoft Tomcat. Certainly in terms of the handling, etc., and just basically how to operate the aircraft. The first 2 videos covered, if you like, the external modelling, the internal modelling, and the flight handling in terms of the modelling of that. This video is going to concentrate on departures. Now, departures are not the standard instrument departures that we all know and love from SIDS and stars and that kind of thing. We're talking about departures where we depart from controlled flight, which is stalls and spins. And there's a couple of things we're going to have a look at. Before we get airborne, I'm going to highlight something which is easy to see whilst we're on the ground and I'm not trying to fly the thing, which is when I put right aileron in and then left alternately, you can see these barn doors, these spoilers rising up on the wing. When I'm turning right, so I roll to the right, this comes up, it destroys lift on this wing, and this wing has less lift and therefore falls away. This one comes up, and at the same time, your primary lift controls, which are the differential ailerons, elevons, they also operate as well. The problem with this is you're putting these barn doors up into the airflow, and that causes drag, and as the air hits these, it drags the wing round to the right. So we get a problem then with adverse yaw as part of the aerodynamic characteristics of this aircraft. So you'll see it in the air. We have issues with adverse yaw with regards to this thing, and they do cause massive problems for the handling of the aircraft at slow speeds. But what we'll do is we'll get airborne. We'll have a look at the procedures and the profiles in terms of using this aircraft, and it's not going to take us long to get to 25,000 feet, which is the height we're going to operate at. Let me just check that my speed brake's in, which it is. Everything else is on. Oxygen, by the way, this switch down here, the oxygen switch, often catches people out. Make sure it's on, otherwise you will have hypoxia, and this thing does model hypoxia at altitude, the effects of which are hilarious. Unless you don't know what's going on, at which point there's a bit of a, oh my word, what's going on with this thing? Make sure the nose wheel steering's on, and away we go. I would suggest, by the way, guys, that you spend some time to map the controls best as you can to your joysticks, because the original aircraft's HOTAS, early HOTAS, I would hasten to add, but this one's HOTAS as well, so let's get ourselves airborne. We'll do a zoom climb. We're not going to hang around down here at low level for too long. There's no point doing that. So whilst we get to speed for a zoom climb, this thing here, angle of attack units, and here they're replicated. They are the angle of attack in terms of the aircraft. Now in a jet aircraft like this, they're referred to in terms of units of alpha of attack. A normal aerofoil will stall at somewhere in the region of 15 to 16 degrees angle of attack. This doesn't equate directly to degrees, because you can see here at 15 units, that's the perfect angle of attack for an approach for this aircraft. So there's a little bit of a disparity. Don't assume it's degrees, it's not degrees, it's units. You can see that we're at 20,000 feet already. We're still climbing. We're going to go up to about 27, 28, something like that. Give ourselves plenty of altitude. Likewise, you'll see that for a significant change in pitch, you pull rather than push, because this thing does not like negative G in any way, shape or sense. It's something to do with the fuel system, I believe. I haven't researched the fuel system, so I don't know a great deal about it, but suffice to say, it doesn't really like it that much. There we are, 27,000 feet, give or take a little bit. So, as I was saying, angle of attack is based on units, not degrees, and what we need to then consider is what's going to happen. Now, this is a clean aircraft. The stall characteristics will change massively if it's not a clean aircraft, particularly if you've got weapons on or loadings that mean it's unbalanced in terms of drag left or right, because the stall and spin characteristics become very markedly different, hugely different, can't emphasize that enough. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be approaching a stall. It's going to be a clean 1G stall, nothing too scary about it. What I want you to keep an eye on is the angle of attack units, which are there and repeated here. And what we're anticipating is between 25 and 30 units angle of attack, we will get a wing rock, a divergent wing rock start. And by that, what I mean is it starts with a gentle wing rock, and it progressively, as it oscillates, it gets worse and worse and worse. The second thing is once we get far beyond 30 units angle of attack, beyond 35, it gets... This only goes up to 30, this goes up to about 35 before it becomes 4 crosses. You get a stall warning that comes in down here, but the stall will then start to develop quite significantly. And you will also find that there are control difficulties, which I will go into after the first stall, or certainly as we approach the first stall. So let's try and maintain altitude, stick the speed brakes out briefly, just to get the speed down as quick as we can. Now I'm not going to trim into the stall, we don't really want to trim into that configuration, so I'm just going to manually control it. Now in terms of the units, as we come back towards 25, don't forget to look for the start of the wing rock, which is your first indication of a stall. You also get manoeuvring slats, which are automatic, which come out. They can cause quite a loud rumble or buffet with this thing. So you may well hear those, but as we try and maintain altitude, we pull back, pull back, pull back. There's the rumbling. 22 units, 23, 24. Wing rock's going to start any second now. You can just see it coming in gently. There's the stall. Wing rock was quite late. Stall, 4 crosses, and I'm going to remove the cause of the stall, which is the angle of attack. That's one of the critical principles to remember, is that if you're going to recover from a stall, you need to recognise the cause of the stall and remove that. There's no point just basically whacking throttle on, because with older aircraft, particularly with older jet aircraft, one of the things you find is that the spool up time of the engines takes quite a while. So it may be that you have to chuck the nose down, because if you imagine that response for airspeed is far quicker than that response. Excuse me. Now we discussed in part the element of ailerons and the adverse yaw. Adverse yaw is a big issue with this aircraft, and I'll just accelerate to a safer speed and we'll look at a problem that the aircraft has, not a problem, a handling trait it has called adverse yaw and control reversal. So I get up to about 80 knots. Right. What I need you to do now is to look into the horizon, and what we're going to do is monitor what this total velocity vector does left to right compared to the clouds here. So if I roll left, you'll see the vector move slightly right. If I roll right, look at the yaw out to the left, and then if I keep doing that, you can see that the yaw is quite marked. So in effect what we're getting is a different result to that which we're expecting. What we're getting is a yaw result that's a significant response to the aileron input. Likewise, this is even more marked. This one is tremendously marked. I'm going to put some rudder in, and I want you to look for the roll input. So the ailerons are neutral. We're going to put some rudder in and see what happens to the roll profile of the aircraft as to what happens. So trim ourselves out a bit. Left rudder goes in. Look at the roll response there. Look at that. Centralise the rudders, and we come out of it again. So let's slow ourselves down. There's a Scilly Isles over there, by the way. Very beautiful part of the world. Used to have a helicopter service, flew from the mainland out to it. I think that's gone now. I think you can only get there by boat, but only went there for a couple of days. But very nice it was too. It was on one of the smaller islands, so there's about half a dozen islands there or something. But yeah, we're going to come get ourselves slightly higher. We're going to come back more towards the stall, and we're going to do the same thing and look at the control reversal as if we were coming into land. In fact, we'll do that in a bit. What we'll do now is we'll go into a proper stall, and then we'll develop it into a spin, and we'll look at the 2 spin recovery techniques that are available. So I'm going to try and keep the nose level. We're going to go into a fully developed stall and then into a spin. I'm just going to whack a load of rudder in to get us into the spin. If you look at the speed, it comes down very low indeed before this thing gets into a stall. We're going to get to 35 units angle of attack before the crosses come in. Wing rock's there, 80 knots, stall. Let's put a full boot of rudder into the right and see what happens. And here we go. Sometimes what happens is it goes into a different direction to what you've got. So if we go outside, you can see we've got It oscillates nose up, nose down. It oscillates in terms, or it changes its rate of spin. You can see it's going a bit lawn dartish at the moment, and then it will go the opposite direction, and then it will go over, and it's quite a bizarre behaviour. So what we'll do is we'll recover. So stick fully forwards, opposite rudder. We haven't got much airspeed, so we're waiting for the airspeed. Now, one of the things you've got to do with this is you've got to do two things. Do not use aileron for recovery at any. It doesn't matter what's happening with the wings. Do not use aileron until you've got enough airspeed to have the right control authority. So we lost about 10,000 feet there. We did sit in the spin for a little bit, admiring ourselves. But do not use aileron, because the adverse yaw component of the aileron will make things a lot worse. Now, when you're spinning, the outside wing on the turn, you're spinning around a vertical axis. The outside wing on the turn basically is travelling faster, so that's why it wants to generate more lift and continue to go up. The inside wing is generating less lift because it's travelling through the air not so quickly, and it continues wanting to go down, and you end up with this spiralling down airflow effect. Let's take the power off and cruise climb up again. So in that first recovery, we let it develop fully, and then we used rudder, and we only used the rudder to prevent further yaw. You don't use it to steer the aircraft per se until you've recovered from the spin. Really, all you want to do is stop the yaw, because if you try and control it too much, you risk putting it into a spin in the opposite direction. So let's just stick the speed brakes out to help us slow down. We don't want to go too high for this one. We need a certain amount of elevation and altitude, because what we're going to do is the alternative one. This is mentioned in the handling notes, and actually it's a recognised technique for a lot of aircraft. I didn't expect it with a fighter, because fighters are generally quite touchy aerodynamics-wise. They're a little bit more unstable than your average airliner and commercial or even GA aircraft. But one of the techniques is as follows. So let's get our speed right back. Let's allow the aircraft to develop into a stall, then we'll put it into the spin and see how we get on. So again, it's going to get up towards 30 units. We're going to be looking for any indication of a wing rock. We've got a buffet coming in there, you can hear it. Yeah, here goes the wing rock at 30. It's very gentle at this point. Into the stall, nose is dropping. We're going to put full rudder in and get ourselves into the spin. Oh, it's playing silly games with us now. Right, look at that. How disorientating is that? Nose down, nose up, inverted, nose down. There's no aileron in this, by the way, guys, at all. This is just the natural characteristics of the aircraft doing what it's doing. Okay, what we're going to do... that's an interesting one. Let go. Let go of everything. Now, if you've got enough altitude, this is something that happens. You can see we're now nose down, we're accelerating nicely, all of the rotation has stopped. All we've done is remove all the rudder, all the stick, and all the throttle inputs. And a lot of aircraft will actually recover from a spin just by the pilot doing nothing, letting go of everything. It's an interesting thing. You need a lot of altitude. I'm not sure that I would want to try it. Certainly a lot of test pilots get paid an awful lot of money for messing around with that sort of thing. But fundamentally, that's one of the things that is an option. It does work with this. It's in the handbook and the manuals as being an available spin recovery technique. But as you can see, we lost the best part of 10,000 feet doing that. And if in effect, what we're saying is, if you're anything below 10,000 feet, you're going to become a bit of a shrubbery with nice rocks and bits of metal strewn everywhere, and it's going to be one of those sad days in flight simulation aviation. So now what we're going to do is we're going to look at increase speed a little bit now. It's basically the stall. Now, the stall is not all about speed. So, in theory this speed is significant, but it's not all about that. It is, however, significant with this bit, the G. Now, what we've been doing up to this point is a 1G stall. And there's two elements that now take it a little bit further. The first thing, if you're doing a 60-degree angle of bank turn, your wing needs to generate more lift to keep you level. And in 60 degrees, you'll generate about 2G to keep the aircraft level. However, what the G does, the wing loading increases, and the stall speed also increases. So, for argument's sake, let's say we would stall at 100 knots. we then go into a 60-degree angle of bank turn. The G comes up to 2G. Now the actual stall speed increases as a square root of the change in G. So if you've got twice the G, you get 40% more, or a 40% increase in the stall speed. So what we're going to do is, previously when we looked at the stall, it was stalling somewhere in the region of between 90 and 100 knots. So we're going to go down and do a 60-degree angle of bank turn and see what we get as a stall speed at 60-degree angle of bank. And it should be significantly higher by about 40%. So we need to get ourselves to a level turn at 60-degree angle of bank, about 2G, so we need a little bit more G. Oh, look, there's your wing rock already, 140. Move the cause, which is the angle of attack on the wing, put a bit of throttle in and recover. We'll have a quick look at that again. And this is one of the reasons why you shouldn't really use aileron and try and pick up the wing with the aileron as well, because all you do is start to mess around with the distribution of lift on the wing again. So we're going to do a level 60-degree angle of bank turn. We're going to try and keep it level. Try and keep it level at about 2G, and we would anticipate our stall speed, because we previously saw the stall speed was down at about 90 to 100 knots. We'd anticipate it coming in at about 140. There's the wing rock. That's not me putting aileron input in, that's the wing rock as a result of the stall. So let's leave it to develop. You can see it's stalled. You can see we've got the 4 crosses on the alpha, on the HUD. You can see our airspeed's down to about 70 knots. Going to do the normal spin recovery technique that I like in this thing, which is just to let go of everything and then let the aircraft figure out what it wants to do. This, by the way, is a really nice effect with the sun, but it's also really nice for figuring out what's happening with the water, because if you imagine now you've got a 3-dimensional appearance with the water, you can figure out where the sun is, and then as a result of that you can figure out your rotation. Very nicely done. I really do like that effect because it gives you a sense of what's going on. The other type of stall that's significant with this is because it's a fighter, unlike an airliner, you're likely to be manoeuvring, and some of the manoeuvres will be quite hard. So we'll get ourselves well above the stall speed, above 200 knots, and then we're going to do what's called an accelerated or dynamic stall, and that is where there is a sudden change in the angle of attack of the wing. Now it can happen with an airliner if you had a wind shear event, where there's a huge change in the velocity and direction of the airflow. But we're going to show that it can happen with an aircraft that's doing harsh manoeuvring. So we'll do our bogies over here. Whoa, look at that. There we go. That's our wing rock and our stall. And if we kept going with that, we're going to end up in a spin, as it's trying to do there. A little bit of rudder just to stop the turn. Plenty of power. Now we've got the speed, we can use the rudder combined with the aileron to get it back. Just being mindful, of course, of the control reversal at slow speed. So there we go, that's all of that done. What we're going to do now is have a quick look at what happens if it all went pear-shaped and we were doing a carrier approach. So normally with a carrier approach you'd be doing about 300 to 325 knots in the downwind leg at about 800 feet. So we'll set ourselves approximately at that, so we've got a reference, frame of reference. Come on, stop playing silly creatures with me. Not so keen on its handling there. It's I wonder if we've upset it somehow. Let me have a look at the instruments. No, all looks good. Never mind, we'll have a bit of fun with it. So let's get ourselves roughly onto south. Now the speed as you go downwind would normally be 300 to 325 knots, something in that region, so we'll keep that speed. We'll get ourselves to 800 feet, which is the normal carrier joining altitude. Then what we've got to do is a level 180 degree turn round to the left, slowing down to about 145 depending on the angle of attack indexer, and then we're going to do a turn from 600 feet round to the left, and at the 90 degree point we should be at 450 feet and then continue round. And I'm deliberately going to mishandle the speed, so give or take a little bit, we're at 800 feet there. We would do our carrier brake now, so we would go like that, we would cut the power, we'd put the speed brake out, and we also, by now we would have also had the hook out. We need to try and maintain our 800 feet. Speed's coming back, so we can put the gear down full flaps. Now we're going to need to add a little bit of power, because otherwise the speed bleeds off far too quickly. And don't forget, we've now got this issue that we've discussed in terms of our change in the stall speed. So now you can see we're back down to 145 to 150 knots. We're at 600 feet on the downwind leg now. Too much power, we're accelerating, we don't want that. Carrier would be over there. See the white of the round down. And then what we would do is we take a little bit of power off. We're looking for a 300 feet a minute rate of descent. Okay, so that's what we would be looking at. And we're going to do something like a 30-degree angle of bank turn, not too much. Looking for between 300 and 400 feet a minute rate of descent, so we're too high in our rate of descent there. So let's bring it up. We're not paying attention to the speed, so any aileron you see now in terms of roll is not me changing the aileron. That's the warning sign there. So we push it, we're trying to get around to the carrier, so we put a little bit more stick in, adverse yaw comes in, and if you look, we've just gone through the water by about 100 feet. We were nowhere near keeping ourselves anywhere near the carrier there. Come on, don't do that to me. Right. So let's get ourselves into a position where I'm going to show you exactly how quickly you need to respond to. So we're still in the carrier landing configuration. We've got the gear down, hook down, full flaps. Watching the speed. I'm going to get us up to about 600 feet and we're going to do a turn round to the left. And I'll show you, you've seen just how quickly it can develop into a bad situation. So we're going to show you just how... we still got that out? Yes. No, speed brake's not out. Let's get that bad boy back out. I'm going to show you just how badly it can develop. We lost a lot of speed and a lot of height there playing around with that. Now, one of the things with this aircraft is it's big and heavy and nasty, and it's got control reversal, but it's also got, at slow speed, a huge drag curve, which if you get low and slow, you need an inordinate amount of power to get out. So you're not just looking at the sort of, you know, the general aviation, let's put a handful of power in or a modicum of power in, and let's just go and do our, right, so here we go, we'll do our turn on to finals. You're not looking at a little bit of let's just handle a little bit of power here. You've got to absolutely hammer loads of power in. So the speed's coming down, there's the wing rock, and the recovery at this point is power, try and remove as much angle of attack as you dare, and then once you've got stability you can climb out. You can see we lost 200 feet doing that, but we're alive. And we'll show you, if you push a bad situation, so we're coming around our final turn, we're halfway around it, in fact we're just starting at 600 feet, coming down, dirty aircraft so it doesn't want to accelerate. The carrier's over here on the left and we're trying to turn into it and we're not getting the rate of turn, so we keep pulling in with aileron and all of a sudden we get a massive 3,000 feet a minute rate of descent and we've hit the water and we're all dead. I'm just going to be naughty, let go of everything, and the aircraft can sort itself out hopefully before we hit the ground. Okay, so there you go guys. Hope you enjoyed that, hope you found it beneficial, hope you enjoy the Tomcat. I certainly do, and if you enjoy the video please don't forget to tick like, share or even subscribe, and I shall see you in the future. The next video will probably be a couple of weeks away, because it's all about the navigation and avionics and the equipment in the cockpit. The only thing it won't be about is the weapons, because I do not have Tacpack at the moment. That may change in the future, but I don't have it at the moment, so I can't really discuss it. And in the meantime, guys, have a nice time flying, and I hope to speak to you soon. Take care.